One thing I also wanted to point out is if you are going to blend this, you start to see the stem on the Swiss chart here, or not the Swiss chart. Idiot.
Welcome to Food is Medicine, where medicine meets the menu. The podcast where the art of culinary excellence meets the science of modern medicine. Join the world's first and finest chef-neurologist dynamic duo, Dr. Victor Wang and Chef Dennis Arvizu, as they dive into the powerful link between our dietary choices and our well-being. Uncover the impactful ways in which simple changes in diet can ward off chronic illnesses, sharpen mental acuity, and contribute to a longer, healthier life. Prepare to be hungry for more than just food. Tune in to their insightful and occasionally spicy discussions today, and find out how the food choices you make can spice up your health for a tastier tomorrow.
All right, welcome back. How you doing?
Yeah, thanks. It's all right. All right. You know, it's been, let's see, I got back from California late Friday night. What's today? Thursday.
I forgot it is Thursday.
Yeah. Yeah. The older you get, the harder it is to recover from jet lag. It just takes forever now. But how are things going? Are you recovered from surgery?
Yeah, I mean, slowly getting there.
Oh, did you just finish your PT?
No, I had it yesterday. I have it tomorrow again. Last night I was pretty beat up.
You were taking ibuprofen after your physical therapy.
Yeah, I meant to take it before. It helps, but forgot.
Got it. So, yeah, it's been a while since we last spoke. You know, I came back from California because of taking care of my father recently passed, and then I know we talked about this already over the phone, but my mother has dementia that's been ongoing, probably worsening over the past 4 to 5 years, and so it's been kind of a headache going back and forth between Boston and Los Angeles area. So, I mean, in the very long flights, I've had a lot of time to think about life and aging. And, you know, I know we talk about food and medicine. I mean, I guess that's the title of our podcast. So, you know, the more I think about it, the more I've really been really more cognizant about trying to change my diet. I know that you've been adopting a lot of things with your recovery from both neck and low back surgery. And it sounds like things are helping. Things are going well.
Yeah, no, first off, my condolences on the passing of your father. I appreciate you sharing, you know, this information. I know it's a difficult time. But yeah, I mean, in terms of diet, now it's been, I'm almost 2.5 months post-surgery. Pretty rigid on a lot of plant-based foods. My wife's starting to freak out a little bit because she's afraid I'm going to turn into a plant. It's actually I feel like it's been changing a lot of things. I mean, I feel like I have a lot more energy. Healing on the surgery is going pretty smooth. A lot of people keep telling me they're quite impressed that I'm able to move in such a short amount of time. So that's a great thing. And mood-wise, I just also feel a lot better. I'm just trying to gradually eat more proteins, like animal proteins. I've definitely cut back on a lot of like beef. I'm looking more towards fish, sticking with juicing. So anything from dino kale, parsley, romaine lettuce, spinach has been great. Right now, apples are back in season, so a lot of apples. Currently waiting on citrus. Talked to the farmer this past weekend, and hopefully in 2 weeks, they'll be starting the first harvest.
Yeah, well, of course, you being in California, the seasons are always a little bit different for everybody. I guess there really aren't too many seasons in California, but slight changes compared to everywhere else.
The unfortunate part, as you were saying, is the seasons are becoming a little bit more noticeable when they happen. A lot more stronger storms, colder weather. And so it's actually deteriorating the ability to harvest food. And so that is kind of one of the areas that I really look into is environmental stewardship, you know, for sustainability for food, because food is how we all come together.
Right. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you touched on a lot of things that, again, on my 5 to 6 hour flights across the country, get to do a lot of reading. And I wanted to talk a little bit about Alzheimer's and dementia, since, I think for anybody that has a loved one that has dementia, I think it's very difficult, and it hits home, very closely. It makes you really worry, I think, again, for those that have very close experience with anybody with dementia, but it makes you worry about yourself too. And there's been a lot of research that's come out probably in the past 2 to 3 years on Alzheimer's specifically, but also dementia. I don't know if you know Dean Ornish. Does that name sound familiar to you, Dennis?
No.
Diet?
Ornish diet?
Yeah. So Ornish, Ornish.
Okay.
And I'd probably say since COVID, there's been a lot more of an emphasis on diet and well-being. I mean, this has always been going on, but since COVID, there's been much more of an emphasis. And I don't know if that has to do anything with sort of social media and the access to information since COVID, but a lot of stuff has been published very recently about the importance of diet and the better well-being and hopefully staving off dementia as well. Most of the stuff is not a secret. It's all everybody knows, for better health. There's probably 4 to 5 pillars that you should really abide by. And things like diet, of course, exercise, sleep, and stress. And some of the research that's come out is socialization and having a purpose in your life. Since we're talking about diet, we'll just sort of focus on that, because sleep is sleep, right? Things like exercise, although there's been so much research looking at how much exercise is enough exercise, because I think all of us all want to know like what the bare minimum is to get by on, right? And I'll just say a little bit about that. The exercise, I think a lot of the research shows that at least 20 minutes 3 times a week of aerobic exercise. What that really is, I don't know if we really know. I mean, if you really pay attention to research, it's hard to tease out what's good research, what's bad research, and what's behind, who's funding the research, right? So who's telling you what's healthy and what's not healthy. But one thing I've realized since becoming a doctor is that we know a lot. I mean, we know a lot, but I think we know less than we think we do. I think a lot of patients come in and expecting doctors to know everything when nobody really knows a lot of answers to these things. But that being said, let's go back to diet again. I know I'm sort of jumping around here.
No, I mean, you bring up a great point. I think for me, the first thing I'm always a little bit confused, and maybe you can help me understand this one, is dementia and Alzheimer's. How are they different, or are they the same thing?
So I think generally speaking, dementia and Alzheimer's are used a little bit interchangeably out in the real world. For a neurologist like myself, there are different types of dementia, of which Alzheimer's is one type of dementia. I mean, that probably takes some time to sort of go into the various different things, but the majority of dementia patients have Alzheimer's. And that's, again, generally speaking, that's what we're talking about when somebody says Alzheimer's. That's, they use, I guess, that's sort of the dementia that we see.
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to say. I'm like, so it's like saying cancer and liver cancer, right? So Alzheimer's would be the specific type of dementia. Got it.
With Alzheimer's being the majority of dementias that we see.
Got it.
So, yeah. So going back to diet again, the research has shown that whole food, plant-based diet is probably the best thing for prolonging dementia onset or slowing down dementia. I mean, generally speaking, the saying that you always hear is what's good for the heart is good for the brain. So it's the same sort of stuff for preventing or for decreasing hypertension, decreasing risk of diabetes or controlling diabetes, being overweight, those types of things, stopping smoking, alcohol. I know this doesn't sound fun.
No.
Again, going back to whole foods.
So, no, I mean, you're absolutely right. I did some back-end research on Alzheimer's and got some pretty interesting data, actually, that I was looking through. And it seems like about 40% of the US population now either has somebody that has Alzheimer's, or they're taking care of somebody that has Alzheimer's. And what's interesting though, and I think, and this kind of goes back to diet as well, is that it seems we have a higher rate of Alzheimer's in this country than other parts of the world, let's just say like Europe. And then if you break it down even more into just the US, it appears like the South, Southeast, Mississippi, Alabama are the place that you have more Alzheimer's patients per capita. And I think that when I look at that in terms of not just demographic, but like location of food, I mean, the Southeast is not known for having able to explain a little bit of the process of what happens to you during dementia or Alzheimer's. I know it's in the brain, but like, does it like just stop working? Does it, I think of a tumor in a cell that just grows and grows and grows, but I'm not sure how that works in the brain.
So probably the simplest way to look at all, it's not the same as a tumor. We don't, again, going back to, we know a lot, but we don't really know as much as we do, which is with Alzheimer's, what causes it is we still don't quite know. We know that there are certain risk factors for it, mostly being age, some genetic factors. But what we see are changes in the brain. And so you get deposits of these plaques that they call plaques in the brain. There are some drugs that have recently come out, very recently, probably in the past 2 years, of IV therapy for getting rid of these plaques. They've shown that they've been able to decrease the amount of plaque burden in the brain, but what that means for the actual dementia is hard to say right now because it's been pretty recent. So I hope that's a good enough explanation, a simplified explanation for Alzheimer's.
So I looked up what you said about the Ornish diet, and it's developed by Dr. Dean Ornish. And the way it's described is it's a low-fat plant-based diet. And long story short, it sounds very just like the Mediterranean diet that we've talked about a few times, where it's focused on, whole foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes. And so we're talking about the healthy fats, the avocado, the olive oil, the fatty fish. And I think I briefly put an explanation of what, when we talk about whole versus processed, ultra processed, and to make it simple, is whole's like, think of an apple. You cut it off the tree, you wash it, and you eat it, and that's whole. If you peel it, now it's a little bit processed. Now, if you make it into applesauce and put stabilizers and chemicals into it, then it's like ultra processed. I've
that's a good way to think about it.
And what I've seen and some of the research I've done is that a lot of the population here in the US, ultra processed foods is probably about 40 to 45% of their diet. People eat fast food anywhere from 3 to 5 times a week. Another thing that was interesting was that how much people snack, right? And when they snack throughout the day, it's not necessarily the stuff that's good for you. So I think it's just becoming more cognizant of that. I'll snack on a lot of like granola or nuts and yogurt, and taking the time to read the labels. Just because it says it's vegan, vegetarian, or it says it's healthy doesn't necessarily really mean much until you read the labels. It can say it's good for you, and then there's like 100 ingredients in it. So lately I've been going through like the ice cream aisle. I always see all these new ice creams that are vegan, that are plant-based. And when you look at the ingredients of the ice cream, it's like half of the tub is the list of ingredients, versus if you look at another ice cream, it might only have like 5, and they're actual ingredients that you recognize, not the chemical nomenclature that no one would
Xanthan
understand.
gum, guar gum, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what you said, because, we hear about processed foods and ultra processed foods. And the question that I think a lot of people don't think about is that what is a processed food? Is all processed food bad? And, processed means basically, yes, anything that's, the apple off the tree is a whole food. Once you cut it, I guess that's technically processed, or you skin it, right? A lot of research has shown that a lot of nutrients are in the skin itself. But I think, that's one way to think about it, is ultra processed means addition of chemicals and other non-recognizable names in the ingredient list. And often the unfortunate part is often the ultra processed food is cheaper and tastes better than the whole food or the minimally processed food itself. So the decisions when you're going through the grocery aisles can be sometimes difficult, especially when you're constrained by budget. But I think, maybe we can start talking about some of your recipes of how to become a plant, as your wife would put it, I think.
Okay. So I'm working on cleaning up for my juice. I have romaine, I have celery, carrots, and as well as dino kale and Swiss chard. And eventually I got to pull out some pink lady apples. And the biggest thing here is that everything here has a lot of fiber, which is great for digestion, keep you fuller. I, however, make my juice with cold pressed juice to maintain nutrients. The caveat to that is it removes the fiber. One way, and the other part is it's a little bit more involved. It requires more produce. Another great way to use it is to just blend it, and you retain the fiber and you don't use as much produce. You still maintain as much nutrients as you can. So if you want more nutrients per ounce, let's just say, or per cup, then you would need to go with the cold pressed juicer. However, if you don't have a juicer, go for a blender. Make a smoothie. And you can, of course, always do this with a mix of frozen berries, frozen whatever, bananas, pineapple, whatever you have. Add some OJ, however, and then add fresh vegetables into it. It's a gradual way to make change. And I think that here the best thing that I want to say is convey the message of raising awareness of what things can be done, how you can make those changes. In other words, make informed decisions. Change doesn't happen overnight. It does take time, but any incremental change is always a good change.
And then just to go back over these pillars of Alzheimer's or dementia prevention, what's good for the heart is good for the brain. And it's important to have a good diet, whole foods, plant-based mostly, or if not, totally, if you can. The other examples, by the way, of plant-based diets, we talked about Mediterranean, we talked about Ornish diet, but some of the other ones would be the DASH diet, and more recently that I've heard is the MIND diet, MIND. So those are things that you can look up, but diet, exercise, decreasing stress, sleep, socializing, and then finding a purpose in life. Those are the way to simplify looking at health. Not just dementia, but all of health.
I'm working on it.
Good. Well, let's maybe we talk about some rest.
One thing I wanted to point out is if you are going to go the smoothie right on the blender, so you got your dino kale and you start to see this big stem. So what you want to do is just take it off. Essentially, this is a lot of fibrous items, and you can see you want to cook this, you can. You need to essentially boil it down a bit, and then you can actually have this. It is crunchy. There's your kale for your kale salad. However, but in my case, for my juicer, I just do the entire thing. But again, if you are going to have the blender, you want to make sure you take off that fibrous stick, just because this will kill your blender. And the same goes for the Swiss chard. Now this one, big leaf, right? Green. You might also see rainbow chard sometimes, but same concept, same principle. All right, take off, clean, blend, and you're good to go.
Yeah, I think we can maybe end there.
Thank you for joining us on this enlightening episode of Food as Medicine, where medicine meets the menu. We hope today's episode has inspired you to rethink the role of food in your health journey. Remember, the power to nourish your body and mind lies on your plate. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share. Food as Medicine, where medicine meets the menu, on all major podcast platforms with others who are passionate about living well. Until next time, keep experimenting in the kitchen and discovering the powerful, healing potential that lies within every meal.